All right. Tony, you're in the trenches. We talk about that often, and you have interesting conversations with folks about their worry-free retirement every day. In fact, we have Jan from Louisville on the phone, and apparently, have you had an interesting conversation with her lately, Tony?
You know, what a lot of people don't realize that have watched this show, and of course, I've been in the Louisville, Kentucky area with this show for well over 5 years. We take calls and all that. People don't realize this, how many calls and emails I get following the show, and I'm perfectly happy to try to answer those. By the way, if you've emailed me and it's maybe taken a couple of days for me to get back, I'm trying to run a personal practice too out in the trenches, so I will get back to you. If it's been a couple of days, send me another email. Say, hey Tony, what are you doing, man? I wanted to hear a response. I'll be happy to get back. This particular individual really caught my attention, and what I asked her to do, I'm going to go over to the whiteboard. We're going to have a conversation. We're probably going to have to go into the next segment. This is an actual conversation we had. This is the kind of conversation when people are talking to advisors they should have. Sure. So I think this is going to be educational as well. So let's see, first of all, Jan, are you on the line with us?
I am on the line.
Okay. Now I'm going to kind of walk over to the whiteboard here. They're going to have to move around. Hang in there, Jan. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself. Like I said, remember, you're on in about 9 states here, so we don't want you giving away too much personal information. So we just know you as Jan from Louisville. You're a real person. This is a real situation. But if you would, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 62 years old, and I've worked at a number of places in my life and have been, I guess, fortunate enough to had a pension at several of those companies. So now that I'm 62, I last year received a pension buyout from one of those companies, and this year I've received another letter with another pension buyout.
So interesting. So these pension buyouts are coming along, and I think that was what precipitated your original call, was what to do with the pension buyout. But I think if we can go into detail, why don't you tell us a little bit about your history or past with a particular advisor who recommended a lot of annuities, and
yes,
explain when you went back to see them and maybe you felt a little disconcerted about the additional recommendation of more annuities. So can you tell us a little bit about how you met this particular individual, the recommendations for annuities, your understanding, and then and so forth in terms of explaining what happened after that?
Okay, I attended a dinner on fixed annuities, and I had a couple of 401ks that I did roll into two separate fixed annuity accounts, and then I actually also purchased another one. I'm not exactly sure when I did that or why, but so now I have 3 separate fixed annuity accounts. With the first buyout, pension buyout I bought what was called an annuity for life with a certain amount of money that I can withdraw from that account on a monthly basis, which I have not started doing yet. But when I called to ask them about the current pension buyout, they suggested that I once again do the annuity for life. But my concern was, do I have too many annuities now?
And what was your concern there? What was your gut telling you?
Well, my gut was telling me I have enough annuities. And, you know, I know with these annuities I can only draw 10% of these a year. And, you know, for my circumstance right now, that's probably fine. I don't need the money right at this time, and I try not to withdraw from this money, as this money does have to last me for most of my lifetime. But there was just something telling me that maybe it's time to break away from annuities. There's got to be something else that I need to diversify and do. And I think that when I was told maybe another fixed annuity, I started feeling like maybe this wasn't the best advice. And so that's where your gut feelings come in, and that's why I called you.
Well, and I think what we were talking about too, so in the meantime, my advice was to get that money in what I called a liquid position. So since it was a buyout, and folks, hopefully if you're watching this, some of you are experiencing this right now, you're being offered buyouts and you're not sure what to do. My advice to you, Jan, if you'll recall, was to get that in a liquid position so that you could access the money.
Right.
And one of my concerns, Jan, and for one of my concerns with a lot of people out there, as these annuities are getting more and more popular, you know, I've done over 1,500 of these annuities since 9/11. I'm very familiar with the products. They are great products for savers. But what happens is we get advisors out there that get a little carried away, and I do not recommend, I'm really cautious of telling people to put all of your money in these because of access. And I don't know if you've experienced this, Jan, but as we talked about having access to money, I think you just felt a little more liberated in knowing, number one, that maybe, hey, you were right, your gut was telling you that, hey, maybe that's too much money in annuities. But secondly, I think what you're saying is you want to have some money that is completely accessible in case things change. Is that correct?
Exactly. That is exactly right. And, you know, the one thing about the annuities that I have, I read some of the brochure that you had online, and I was noticing that there are annuities where instead of 10% a year, if you don't take it, say, in year 2013, then in 2014 you can get 20%. Well, the annuities that I have, that is not the case. I still am only locked into only getting 10% a year, and if I choose not to take it the following year, it's still just 10%. And I think as an individual here who's not a financial guru, it's important for people to ask the right questions.
Okay.